A revelation. Sitting in a training room with tables arranged in a semicircle with 12 other human resource practitioners from various state government departments. The investigator trainer's dark trousers and white shirt didn't match his charismatic, energetic personality. His excitable personality was more akin to that of a personal development leader than the dullness of investigator training. Investigator training taught how to recognise an employee's lying during an investigation interview. Techniques were tested on how to detect lying by reading unique physical gestures and facial nuances. As a group, we were asked to each stand up and tell 2 truths and 1 lie. Using our newly taught skills, each participant wrote down in their notebook which was the lie. After 13 participants had completed the exercise, we each had to disclose to the group which was the lie, and then we each tallied how many lies we detected correctly. Most trainees got around 4 out of 13 correct. The trainer also confirmed that 4 is normally the average for correct answers. When it came to me, I had 11 out of 13 correct. The trainer said in a gobsmacked way, "How did you do that? I've never had anyone get 11 answers correct before. What did you do?" The group was smiling, with each nodding, and someone said, "You should join Areya." Then came the laughter. I smiled back. The trainer still standing, staring intently at me, waiting for my answer. At that time, I didn't know how I got 11 out of 13 answers correct. Knowing I was the only Indigenous person there, I said, "Oh, it's a cultural thing, like reading in between the lines." It was an answer without answering because I was unsure how I did it. I was surprised that most only got 4 correct answers, and by what a big deal the trainer was making about my capability. He was genuinely intrigued. Squinting while looking at me, trying to isolate any magical talent that may have broken some sort of code. He nodded slowly, acknowledging my answer with a skeptical expression, like I was withholding some valuable secret up my sleeve that I wasn't divulging. That night at home, my mind started sifting and sorting, looking for clues. Why was I able to correctly detect 11 lies out of 13? I questioned myself. How did I do that? Why did the other trainees do so poorly compared to me? Meditating on reruns of the training that day, I tried to isolate the technique I employed. Slowly I realised that I didn't follow the training protocol to visibly search for nuanced physical cues of lying. For the answers, that I was correctly detecting lies, I was not looking at the trainee when they told 2 truths and a lie. I realised that I had been only looking at my notebook, listening to trainees speak 2 truths and a lie. The 2 answers I got wrong were the 2 I tried applying the trainer's methodology by looking for visibly lying cues. During training, I realised quickly that approach didn't work. I reverted to some default screening process I didn't even realise that I was using. Still searching the hallways of my mind for clues as to how I detected lies, slowly a dawning of what I did came over me. I quickly reasoned during training that it was useless to try and identify lies when most people live a measure of lies 24/7. Most people are wearing a mask presenting a demeanour that hides who they really are most of the time, not realising they do it as a daily modus operandi. Television has intermittent streams of lies through commercial advertising, trying to convince the audience that we need whatever the offerings are for unrealistic promises displayed on the screen. We are programmed with lies, often and throughout most days. I considered, how could people detect visible lies amongst the baseline standard where most people live a lie? Most people are trying to hide who they are, or feel that if people could see behind the facade, they wouldn't be liked or accepted. We are either too black, too white, too fat, too skinny, too this and too that. Being you is unacceptable because society, magazines, television, and Hollywood movies show you so. So based on that assumption, I dropped the trained visual cues, the process explained by the trainer. I couldn't see how it could possibly work. In looking at my notebook and not looking at each trainee, only listening to what was said, I could hear and see their lie without looking at them. Yes, I saw their lie without looking at them. For example, one participant said that they had previously lived at 3 different residential addresses. When the first address was spoken, I drifted into seeing a room. The second address spoken, I again drifted into seeing a room. The third address spoken, I again drifted into seeing a room. What differentiated each room into truths and a lie? When I saw the 2 addresses that were the truth, the visual expression in my mind's eye was bright and solid and held its form. The address that was a lie, when I looked at the room in my mind's eye, it started fading quickly until dispersed into a type of mist. In other words, visual truth in my mind's eye holds its colour and solidity. It lasts and holds its form. The lie lost colour, quickly faded and dispersed into nothing. Unknowingly, I had applied the same innate approach for each of the answers. Therefore, each lie lost its colour, solidity, and faded quickly. I knew that was the lie. Hence, when I applied my technique, I got 11 out of 11 correct. Adding into the equation the 2 times I used the trainer's technique, I got 11 out of 13. There it was. For the first time, I realised I was what I referred to as seeing in the spirit, seeing in the beyond, a parallel realm where thoughts, words, and actions are imprinted. The more I thought about it, I realised my knowing of other things must be defaulting to innately known practices that I unknowingly employ. After hours of pondering that night, I realised that this is something automatic that I do, that is so innate that I wasn't cognizant of it. Now that I was cognizant of it, I wondered how I defaulted to this innate system that I must revert to much more than I realised. This set me off on the road of exploration as to what else I might be doing unawares. I didn't see this as being any special ability. I was more surprised that other people don't have a resource for knowing? Why didn't others in the group have an instinctive guiding system? Why did everyone else completely trust the trainer when I didn't? Why did I realize the system wouldn't work, and yet others must have thought it would? Was it just because the trainer explained, this is how you do it, and they complied? I tested the trainer technique, and after 2 tries, realized, nah, this isn't going to work. I tried my own guidance system that I didn't know existed and didn't know I was applying. The strange part about it was that as I was employing the system, I have absolutely no doubt that what I was seeing was real. In knowing that what I was seeing was an absolute truth, I knew that my answers were going to be 100% correct. Somehow deep down, I knew that what I saw was an irrefutable truth. But why did I know this? Where did this absolute notion of 100% reliability stem from? Something I must have been using for some time unawares of the absolute certainty that came with it. Was it because I had unconsciously used this system for so long? Was it that the automated default system was so subconsciously tried and tested to the point of absolute knowing the outcome without doubt? The next revelation that surfaced was that I had control over the system. Unconsciously, I chose a system presented to me, but as soon as it didn't work, I took control and defaulted to another system I didn't realize I use. This revealed to me that I can use my system at will and choose what system I will use to reveal to what was truth and what wasn't. The next question was, is it the voice of the trainee explaining the 2 truths and a lie that created the images in the spirit? Or was it my imagining what was being said that created the image? What is the source of where the image of the scenario derives from? Me or the trainee? Or is it something other? Regardless of unknowingly using the system during the training session, I was still a bit baffled that none of the trainees realised that the visual cues will likely not work. Why didn't they work that out? Why did they continue with a flawed technique that couldn't work? Why did they persist if in all likelihood they could have just been guessing? Why didn't they rely on their instinct? Why did they give their control over to the trainer without question? Why? I had more questions about the trainees at this stage than at the revelation of my own guidance systems. Does this mean that those trainees are going to be more likely during their life to be duped? Am I going to be at an advantage? If so, why is my guidance system so refined? Why didn't the trainees have an instinctive guidance system? They honestly believed that the training in identifying lies must be the best technique, even though they had no evidence for this. My conclusion came quickly after 2 trainees gave their scenarios. My conclusion was that what I saw couldn't be believed because humans are expert liars. If I didn't believe what I was seeing, why did the other trainees? Or were they completely reliant on the expertise of the trainer? The outcome of this training session changed the trajectory for my self-belief and confidence in my knowing. Although I wouldn't call this intuition, intuition can be reliant on a feeling or hunch, a sense of. Whereas I was seeing words take form without a feeling associated with them. It was purely an imagery form. And changes to that form is what revealed a truth or lie. It was devoid of emotion and only seeing. Knowing that what I was seeing was truth was only a neutral observation. I didn't feel happy, elated, or doubtful in my emotion. However, the seeing operated in a system of absolution, without question in its reliance. Although seeing the so-called visual lying cues of the trainees as described by the trainer, I had absolute doubt in the ability of that process working. Why didn't the trainer teach us how to identify truth? By its omission in training, why is truth a supposed difficult reality to identify? Do humans subconsciously realize that grasping truth today is out of reach? In evaluating, I thought this was the most peculiar tenet to focus on, lying, and dismissing the enormous preeminence of truth. After all, during an investigative interview, aren't we trying to get to the truth of the matter? Is the human world so ingratiated in lying that notionally we are looking at big lies that stand out rather than small lies? A lie is a lie, isn't it? The fact that the trainer gave no attention to the tenets of truth during training to offset why detecting lies is the way to go was perceived by me as succumbing to human behaviour by assessing within the mire of lies swirling around us. Why isn't truth more important? Why was it dismissed as a process for knowing whether a truth or lie was being spoken? Why didn't the trainer teach how to detect truth during an investigative interview? Then, by recognising the truth, the trained investigator can identify, but there is no lie in the dialogue of the interviewee responding to a question. Hence, the truthful interviewee is off the hook. The other question that sprung to mind was, what is the guiding force between what is seen in the real world and what I see in the spirit world? Why is one absolute in the spirit world and the other not absolute in the real world? What force enacts the incongruence between the spirit world and what is known in the real world? My innate guidance system was telling me that in the spirit world, what is seen is absolute in its defining presentations. Is the spirit world a place where lies cannot be sustained? What is the determining force that makes a lie disperse and fade quickly and a truth to remain in colourful solid form? What determines differentiation in that process? Why didn't the lie hold its colour and form? Why did it fade to show it was a lie? Was it my own consciousness just revealing that I knew the truth or lie all along? Or is there a spiritual unseen space beyond that has rules for truth or lies? Is there in the spirit world a resonance that reacts to right and wrong? This in itself assumes that truth is right and lying is wrong. Is there a universal space we are surrounded by that, if we access it, can reveal absolutes? Why couldn't I influence what I was seeing and accidentally get an incorrect answer? Is the space beyond, in the spirit world, a reality full of intelligent reasoning to words, thoughts, images? Is the spirit world a macrocosm of reasoning? Does that macrocosm have a position on things, an adjudicating force? Does it agree or disagree? Does it accept or reject? Or does it respond to an answer needed, like as a trainee, I needed to know the truth and lie, therefore the macrocosm assisted me as a beneficiary seeking guidance and receiving it? Or was it because I like truth and hate lies, and I am actually the adjudicator, reflecting this in a macrocosm created by me? Do I hold an internal position that affects how the macrocosm works? What about people who like lying and dislike truth? How would they fare? Some people enjoy duping others through lying because it gives them a sense of power to influence using whatever means necessary. In the recipient believing the liar feels above them because they were stupid enough to believe the lie. These are mysterious questions. How many times have we heard the answers we are looking for are inside of us? What if that's not true? What if the answers are outside of ourselves? Or is the inside of us and outside of us connected? Are they one and the same? Regardless of my propositional ponderings, this training became a turning point in my life of recognizing something about myself that I previously was not aware of. A revelation.